We're learning as a schutz for Shlema Filan Chaya Basarach. We just saw, I think, the Mishnah that ended on the top of Samach Gimel Amid Beis, and we're just going to review the Mishnah one more time. I'm going to remind you, of the basic structure, which is the way it's reminded, well, the way I keep it in my head. We know that the chatas is the carbon that it's unique amongst the carbonis, that its dam is thrown on the cronus on the top of the mizbech. And all the other animals, the dam goes on the bottom of the mizbech. In the oifis, there's both the chatas oif and the oilas oif, and they are reversed. That means that the chatas ha'if, even though the animal chatas gets thrown on the keren, the dam of the chatas ha'if is on the bottom of the mizbech, and the oilas ha'if sticks out. That unlike all the other animals, the oil included, that their dam goes on the bottom of the mizbech, it goes on the upper half of the mizbech, not on the keren like the chatas, but it goes on the top part of the mizbech. Okay. So now we're going to talk about both of these chatayis, both of these oifis, the chatas oif and the oilas oif. So first, the Mishnah talks about the chatas oif. Chatas oif oisenasis al keren droimis maravis. It was done hayanasis, meaning that there were three parts of a chatas ha'if. There was the first the malika, where it's going to be described in another blot or so, where the kohen would drive his thumbnail through the neck of the oif to get out to cut its head off, and then it would be zrika, where it would be spritzed onto the place where it's supposed to be spritzed, and then finally there would be mitzah, where he would squeeze out the leftover dam, and then the whole left bird, there was nothing that went as a murim. The whole bird was given to the kehanim. So the chatas ha'oif ha'isanasis, all these three things, the malika and zrika and mitzah, was done al keren droimis maravis, on the corner. This is not the horn. Like we said, the chatas ha'oif is on the bottom of the mizbeach, not on the top. So it was done on the corner, on the southwest, which again, the southwest is the part that's closest to the entrance to the Heichel. I mean, the Ma'ariv is close to the Heichel, and as we'll see, going according to the Manda Amar, that the whole Mizbeach was B'tzafen, so this was opposite the entrance to the Heichel. And it was kosher in every place, but this was its place. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. Ushloisha dvarim hoisa oisa keren mishameshes milmato shloishes milmailo, and there were three things that corner was used for. On the bottom part, underneath the chut hasikra, the bottom part of the mizbeach, ushloisha milmailo, and three things on top, meaning on by the keren, or by the top, on the top half of the mizbeach. Milmata chatas ha'oif, like we just said in the beginning of this Mishnah, the bottom, the chatas ha'oif, you did the zrika and the mitzah, the hagashas, as well as we had on the previous plot, that you brought the mincha. When you first brought the mincha, it was like the mincha, you first did a kmitza, which was similar to the shchita, and then you did the hagasha, which was sort of like the halacha. You brought it, so that was brought to that part of the mizbeach, ushiari hadam, and the shiari hadam of a regular carbon, the yisaid, the part of the yisaid it was brought to was, I'm sorry, not and that was brought to the bottom part, the yisaid of the mizbeach on that southwestern corner. Umel Maila, what was on top? Nisach hayayin b'amayim, the pouring of the wine that was done with every shlomim, and I think oila, and the mayim that was done on Sukkot, they would pour out. That was done on the upper southwestern part of the mizbeach. V'oila saif, like we said, the oila saif, unlike the chat saif, that was done on the top part of the southwestern corner of the Mizbech. It wasn't done regularly there. Shiraba b'mizrach. Really, it was supposed to be done on the east side. But when there were too many Kehanim busy on the southeastern part, they would go instead to the southwestern part. They were allowed to do it there.
And this is actually on the top, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Are you actually on top of the Mizbeach at this point when we say above?
The Oila Saif, we have yeah. I think it's because I think we say you take it and you walk around on top. I think it's on by the like next to the Karen.
And also because
It's not actually on the Karen. I think it's on the surface of the
right,
Marafa.
and the Nesachim were not. They didn't like pour it like that. It dripped down the side. They poured from the top.
Well, we saw before,
Right?
right? We saw there were two. There was the first base I made. This was different than the second.
Yeah.
Right? According to one sheet, they used to pour it down the side, but then they switched it, or it was two shitas, right? First, it was that they would pour it down the side, and they said no, it has to be into the actual holes. They made holes, and they went through the earth, went through the Adama inside the Mizbeach. Kol ha'olam Mizbeach, olam derech yamin, makifim v'yarden derech smal. The general rule was that people who went up on the Mizbeach, so we have our picture in our mind that the ramp going up to the Mizbeach was on the southern side, and that was, and when you would go up the ramp, you'd be facing, when you reach the top of the ramp, you'd be facing the Mizbeach, so you'd go to the right if you had to do any avodah. There was, if you remember, there was the pathway for Kehanim that they would go in. So it was a one-way street, that pathway, but there generally. And they would always go make a right when they came to the Mizbeach, and then they would keep making, they were really making lefts, but as someone looking at the Mizbeach, it would always be toward that right-wise, that counterclockwise direction. Chutz min ha'oil legimel elu, except for these people that were doing things on the top of the Mizbeach, or on they do the yayin, the mayim, and the oila sa'if, that they would go up and they would go to the left. They would go to the Ma'ariv, and then they would go up and go to the left, and then they would go back the same way that they came back. Going all the way back to the beginning, that we said the Chata Sa'if was done on the Keren Mizrach's Droimus, Maravas Droimus. Where does that come from? Amar Rav Yeshua Amar Kra L'Yasam Alei Hashem L'Yitin Alei Levayna Ki Chatasi. He's talking about Minchas Chayta. A mincha does this. The mincha that's brought as a, if you remember the carbon oil of a yored, someone who wasn't able to pay for the more expensive carbon would bring an oif, and if he couldn't afford that, he'd bring a mincha. So he says about that mincha, there was no shemen, there was no oil on it, and there was no levina, because it was a kichatasi, because it's a chatas. So chatas kruya mincha. So we see that a chatas is called a mincha. A mincha kruya chatas, and a mincha is called a chatas. Ma chatas. So in what way is a mincha called a chatas? Ma chatas to unitzafen, af mincha to unitzafen. Just like, so they take this out. Rashi takes this out. He says this is a total mistake. So Rashi, ma chatas to unitzafen. Yadani shegir sezu shiba shari loy chatas ta'if loy mincha to unitzafen. Neither of them needed tzafin. So if you go all the way down in the Rashi, we learn out from a chatas that it becomes pashul shalol lishma, that mincha also is pashul lishma. And we learn out in menachos. So that's what the real, that's what the Rashi says the correct version is. And then so that's what we learn ma chatas, that a chatas teaches you to a mincha, and uma mincha bekeren maravas dremis, av chatas bekeren maravas dremis. And we learn out from the mincha that, like we said, the hagasha of the mincha is on the southwestern side. So too, the chatas ha'oif is also brought bekar maravis droimus. Sagt the Gemara, mincha gufa minal. And how do you know the mincha? The Tanya, lefnei Hashem. The Torah says that the mincha should be brought lefnei Hashem. What's the pasuk? B'zois Torahs hamincha hakakriv oisa b'nei Aaron lefnei Hashem al pnei hamizbech. It says lefnei Hashem, and it also says lefnei al pnei hamizbech. Yachal b'mayrav. So I might say lefnei Hashem means opposite the heichal, the entrance to the heichal. So that should be on the western side. The pasuk continues, like we said. It says also al pnei hamizbech, by the entrance to the mizbech. The entrance to the mizbech is the side of the keves, which is the kevesh, which is the southern side. So it shouldn't be on the western side. So then it should be on the southern side. That's why it says lifnei Hashem. Haketz. That's how do you satisfy both things? One says to the west, and the other one says to the south. Magisha b'ker maravis droim is keneged chudash shel keren v'daye. He brings it opposite the mincha, opposite the corner, and that's sufficient. He was yaitza both of them. Rabbi Elazar says, Yachal yagishena l'maravis shel keren or l'droim shel keren. Maybe it means that you could take it either to the west or to the south. Either one of them, or one of them is what you should be doing. So the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar Aimer is a Rashi me'achshapel chakasa b'hagashas shtei ruchas yachal le'ezemen sheyirtza. You can do whichever one he wants. So the Gemara Amrit kol makom shata moitze shnei mikrois echad mekayim atzim mekayim chaveri v'echad mekayim atzim mevatel chaveri. Whenever you have two psukim and you could listen to one, and by listening to one, it will also be mekayim the other. Masha enket, if you listen to the other one, you won't be able to mekayim the other. You'll obviously use the pasuk that can still not be mevatel. It will not contradict the other pasuk that you said. So therefore, when it says al pnei Hashem, which means opposite the entrance to the heichal, that's the west. How are you being yaitz to that which it says it has to be on the face of the mizbech? That's on the south. You are also being mekayim lifnei Hashem b'darim. But when you do it, I'm sorry, that even when you do it on the southern side, you also be mekayim that it's in front of the heichal. Darim heicha kayamta. For the Gemara, how are you being mekayim? Darim is a side where the kevesh is the kev. I have a dyslexia on this word. I keep mixing it up. A kevesh is a sheep, and a kevesh is the kesef. Yeah. So b'darim heicha kayamta. How are you able to be mekayim the need to be in front of the entrance to the heichal by putting on the southern side with the ramp? Ravashi kasava haitana kula mizbeach b'tzafon koi. We're going that the entire mizbeach is b'tzafon. So the end of the mizbeach, is at the midpoint of the entranceway to the heichal. So when you put it on the southern side by the ramp, that's also opposite the entrance to the heichal. So therefore, when you put it therefore, you could do it on the southern side, and therefore you'll also be in front of the heichal, and you don't have to do it on the corner of the southwest. You can do it on the southern side, and you'll be mekayim both things. We said in the Mishnah a very strange thing. First, we said that you have to do the avodah of the chatas ha'oif, on the southwestern side. And then afterwards we said, very unusual lashon to say you can do it in any place, but this was its makom. So what does that mean? Zok the Gemara. Maika Amar, Amar Ravashi, Hachikam. What is it saying? This is what it's saying. So like we said, there were three parts to the Avodah. There was first the Malika, then there was the hazah, the zrika, and then there was the mitzah. So the malika, the first part could be done any place. But this was the place to be maza the dam. So we say b'chol makom, that's referring to the malika, and as far as the southwest, that was the other part of the hazah of the dam after you do the malika. So this Mishnah is similar to what we saw in the Brisa. Malika b'chol makom b'mizbeach kshera. You can do malika in any place on the mizbeach, and it doesn't mean bedafka on the mizbeach, but the Mefarshim explained that there was, when you would do the malika, obviously the head of the chicken was off, then you'd be running like a chicken without a head if you did it at somewhere in the Azara to bring it over to the mizbeach. So it made sense to do it in the malika in the same place as the hazah. But so it says he's a badam b'chol makom kshera, he's a veloy mitzah. I'm sorry, he's a dam b'chol. Then it says he's a dam b'chol makom kshera. If you maza the dam in any place, it's kosher, which is obviously a problem. That's not at all like what our Mishnah just said. He's a veloy mitzah kshera, and then it says even if you don't end up having any extra dam left over after you spritz the dam on the mizbeach, and there's nothing left to squeeze out, it's still kosher. The mitzvah, the mitzvah sadam is not ma'akev. But you do have to have, from the chatasayif, you have to have dam for hazah. If you can't let it all drip out and there's nothing left to be mazah, that is ma'akev. So my kama, what is this Brisa saying? Hakakama, malka b'chol makom b'mizbeach shera, mitzvah dama b'chol makom b'mizbeach shera. Both the malika and the mitzvah, which is the last part, you could do it in any place on the mizbech, and it doesn't mean bedafka on the mizbech. It could really be other places. It's not ma'akev. I mean, obviously the mitzvah has to be on the mizbech. So the Gemara is taking out. It's changing the lashon, right? We had said in the Brisa that the hazah could be any place. He's saying that the mitzvah, if it's done anywhere, mitzvah dama b'chol makom mizbeach, it's going to be kosher. Now, it's like I said, it doesn't have to be that bedafka on the mizbeach. She'im hiza v'loy mitzvah kshera, because the rule is if you don't end up doing any mitzvah at all, it's kosher. So, b'diavad you could do the mitzvah everywhere else. However, it is ma'akav that you have to do the hazah in the proper place. So we're changing the lashon of the brisa, that we're substituting the word hazah for the word mitzvah for the word hazah. It's not telling you could be maza anywhere. It's telling you could do the mitzvah anywhere, because if you didn't do the mitzvah at all, it would still be kosher. Shloisha devarim. We said that there were three things that were done on the Keren Droimis Maravis Lamata, and three things Lamaila. And the three things were Lamata were Chata Sa'if, and Hagasha bringing the Mincha, and Shiari Hadam. So what is Zok the Gemara? Shloisha Dvarim, Chata Sa'if Hadamar. And Chata Sa'if was the previous Gemara that explained that we learn it out from Mincha. Hagasha d'chsev v'gisha al pnei hamizbeach. Right? We asked when we said that we learn it out from the Mincha. We asked where do we know the Mincha, and we said the drasha of the pnei hamizbeach. And shi'ar adam d'chsev it's called am yishbech al yisayid hamizbeach. The pasuk says, "Nasa kamin adam al karnis hamizbeach." Yeah. It says asher pesach hayil mayid. It says about that also asher pesach hayil mayid. So Rashi says, "Al Yisayim Mizbeach V'Armina Beis Mekayman." We learned this a couple of weeks ago. Yilmid Yuridasam Nekevesh Bechatas Hachitzonis B'Tziasam and Heichel B'Samachle. So it tells you that it has to be the nearest place, just like that you have to bring that you have to do it from when you come out of the Heichel. He has to do his his the shvichas of the shirayim in the nearest place, so too when he comes off the ramp coming from the mizbech, it also has to be in the nearest place. Behind you say droimi. That's the southern side, right? The ramp is on the southern side, so it should be on the southern side. But hold on, ein lo yisoid ela am achas bekern marav is dremis. But there is no yisoid on the southern side. The only yisoid is that corner that's on the southwest. There's no corner. The other corner, the southeastern corner, does not have. So that's why. That's how we know that the shvichas shirayim has to be on the southwestern corner. So the Gemara Milmaila on the top, there were three things that were done on the southwestern corner. Milmaila nisach hamayin vayayin, the pouring out of the water and the wine. Va'oilas ha'oif k'shigiraba b'mizrach. And the oilas ha'oif, when there was not sufficient room, there were too many people in the mizrach, so they did it in the ma'ariv. My timer. Why is it? Sfek the Gemara. We're going straight to the last one. We say the oilas ha'oif was done when it wasn't available on the mizrach. They would do it on the ma'ariv on the southern side. So where does that come from? Sach the Gemara. Yeah, so we're asking why is it going to be first on the mizrach, and then if there's no room, then you do it to the ma'ariv. Because it's the closest place to the Beis Hadeshin. We're going to see in the Gemara that the Gemara is going to demonstrate to us that the Beis Hadeshin was on the eastern side of the ramp. The ramp was on the southern side of the Mizbeach, and on the eastern side, facing the part closer to the entrance to the Azara, was the Beis Hadeshin about 10 amas from the start of the ramp. So when they would do the avodah of the Oilos Ha'oif, there was left over, the part of the avodah was they would take the murav v'noitza, the crop and the feathers of the animal, of the bird, and they would throw it onto the Makom Hadeshin. And as the Gemara will say, it was a long throw, so they made it as close as possible. They did the avodah in the place that was close as possible to the Makom Hadeshin. So Gemara, my time. You see how strong the Kehanim were. Very light, the crop and feathers. Feathers we know are light. Crop, I guess, it was a relatively light combination. And sometimes the kohen would have to throw it more than 30 amas. Meaning, if it wasn't on the mizrach, if there wasn't enough place on the mizrach, they would have to cross over to the western side of the mizbeach, which was the western corner, which was more than 30 amas from this Makom Hadeshin, which was on the eastern side of the ramp. The Tznan. This describes the avodah of the Oilos Ha'oif. Not on machta shel kasef, he would take a silver shovel, go onto the mizbeach, upinas hagechalim eila ve'elach, he would spread out the coals, he would take out from the burnt up coals, the most burnt up portions, v'yorid, and would go down the ramp, v'higia l'ritzpa, when he reached the floor at the bottom of the ramp, machzor panav klapei tzafon, he would turn toward the north. He would go 10 amas back up in the northern direction from the entrance of the kevesh toward closer to the mizbeach, 10 amas. And that's where he would gather the gechalim on the ritzpah. He would pile up the coals on the ritzpah from his shovel. 3 tfachim from the kevesh. That was the place that they would throw the Moira V'Noitza from on top of the Mizbech. The Dishan, and as well as Dishan Mizbech Hapnimi, they would take the burnt out Ketairis from the inner Mizbech, V'Amenayra, and they would take out the leftovers of the Menorah, the burnt out wicks. So you see that was the place that they would have to throw from during the avoda the feathers and the nutza, and when it was on the southwestern side, that was over 30 amas. Now Rashi goes through all of the math, which I have a kasha on Rashi, but I'm not gonna. I'll just tell you generally what my kasha on Rashi is. He makes calculations. If you see how far, it's about 21 amas, right? The ramp was 32, but it was covering over the side, and it comes out to 21 amas to the mizbech, and then it goes to the side. It was about what was it? It was 16 amas. It was the width of the, so it was altogether 16 amas was the length of the, was the width of the kevesh, and then you have another 5 amas toward the till you get to the keren. So there was 21 amas. So it was basically, I'm sorry, it's 20. So it was 23 amas because it was 1 amma onto the top of the mizbeach. So 23, 21. You calculate the hypotenuse of that, it comes out to about 31, a little more than 31. But it's also not calculating the amount that goes down. So the length of the actual throw is a little longer. Right? It's going down 10 amas. So that should also add to the length. But I guess it's not when you're talking about the strength of the throw, he has gravity on his side, so I guess they could ignore that part. This is a little more than 31 when you do the calculations. It's only a little more than 31 if you assume that the kayin had to be standing an amma in the amma past the keren to throw it to where he was throwing it from, but we don't count that as part of the cheshbon, so that's why it comes out to about 31. We said kala olam lemizbech, whoever goes up on the mizbech would go to the right, and they do their circuit in a counterclockwise direction, because you're always supposed to go on to the right. My timer. So we said, but these three, the Oilas Ha'if, the Oilas Ha'if, as well as the Yayin and the Ma'ariv for the Sachim, they would go straight to the left to the Ma'ariv. They wouldn't have to go the long way around by making a right, going first to the Mizrach and going around the whole circuit on top. So why is it that these you skip the track of going around? Rav Yechon Nesachim Shema Asanu, because the Nesachim were worried that it would get filled with smoke, it would get ruined by exposure to the smoke from the Maracha by taking the long way around. So therefore, and that would passel it. So therefore, you had to go quickly. They were taking a live bird to bring it to the corner. They were worried that it would die from exposure to the smoke of the Maracha. When he goes to go around the Mizbeach, where does he start from? He can draw Mizrachas. He starts from the southeastern side. Mizrach, then he goes to Mizrachas Tzvainus Maravis is Draimis, the Noisla Yayin Lenesach. And he takes the Yayin of the Nesach. So it sounds like that you take the Yayin of the Nesach and you go around all four corners the long way. Now, Amar Rav Yechanan, Hakav Beregel. No, it doesn't mean that he got the Yayin and then he went around, but rather he went around just with he just walked around by himself, and after he finished walking around, they handed him the Yayin. I'm not sure how did they hand it to him? Where was this Kayin holding the wine? Where they had maybe like a long stick or a cherry picker on the outside of the Mizbeach to give it to him. It was 10 amas high. How are they handing him Yayin on the Mizbeach? I don't know. Amar Rava. Rava says, Dekanami. I'll prove it to you. Diktani, Nesla Yayin Lenesach, Veloikani Oimeloi Nesach. It says they give him the Yayin to Nesach, and it doesn't say that they would just tell him to pour. So Rashi is saying that this is talking about somebody, so this person who had to do some other avodah, and he was Therefore, he was going the long way around. He wouldn't take the yayin, he would just get handed to it. And we prove it because it says it didn't say um they said give it, it says give you give him the yayin for the nesach, and it doesn't say just go ahead and do with the yayin that you already had. I guess it means is that there was another kayin who was also doing yayin. So this kayin had a second job that he had to do that required him to go around the long way. So the kayin, I guess, who was doing a different yayin, a different nisach, would wait there and give him the yayin as soon as he came. Taner Rabban, kol ha'olim lemizbeach, oilen derech yamin v'yarden derech smol. They would go up on the right, to the right, going in a counterclockwise direction. When we get to the southwestern corner, they would go down. They would make a left to go down. Oilen derech mizrach v'yarden derech ma'ariv. They go up on the east and they'll come down on the west. Chutz min ha'oil l'shloisha dvarim halalu. Except for the three things that were mentioned in our Mishnah. She'oilen derech ma'ariv v'yarden derech ma'ariv. They go up on the ma'ariv side and they come down on the same side that they came down. They came up. Oilen derech yamin v'yarden derech yamin. That they go up on the right and they come down on the right. Frektumara derech yamin derech smoilu. Going down on the west is not derech yamin. That's the smoil of the mizbech, right? We always look at it when you're facing the entrance of the mizbech. Is it the yamin or the smoil? So facing the entrance, the western side is the smoil. Amar Ravina tani smoil. Yeah, einachanami. You say derech yamin and v'yarden derech smoil. Rava amar ma yamin the mizbech or my smoil the gavra. When it says that he goes down derech yamin, it means that when the person is coming down, he's facing away from the mizbech, so then it's on his yamin. The ma'ariv is his yamin. Well, my smile is the smile of the gav. Benisni I ID mizbech I ID the gav. Frankly, it doesn't make sense. Why are you mixing it up? You're saying for one thing, you're saying the derech yamin. He goes up on the derech yamin of the mizbech, and then when he comes down, he's coming down to the derech yamin of a gavra. It's a Gemara kasha. It's taka a good kasha. Let's chop one more Mishnah. Zok the Mishnah. Chatas Eif Ketzad Hayanasis. How is the Chatas Eif done? Hayamolik Es Roisha Mimul Arpa. He would separate the head from the. I hope this is not scary for anyone listening. They would separate the head of the chicken using from its neck. By its neck, using his thumbnail. The Einim Mavdil, he would separate it, but he wouldn't. He would stick it in, but it wouldn't be fully decapitated. Umaza midam al kira mizbech. Then he would spritz from the dam on the floor of the mizbech, on the wall of the mizbeach, right? Because we're talking about the chatasayif. The chatasayif was on the bottom. Shiari adam mismatza al hayisayid, and the leftover dam he would squeeze out or drain out onto the yisayid. Ve'el mizbeach el adama. The only thing that the mizbeach gets, the only avodah that the mizbeach gets is the dam. There's no emurim. The rest of the oif goes v'kula lekehanim. The whole bird goes to the kain. Tarabanim. He's a midam achatas migufa chatas. He'd be mazah from the dam achatas from the guf of the chatas. Haketzad oiches beroish. He would hold on with beroish ubeguf. He'd hold on to the head and the guf. Umazeh al ki al mizbeach, and he would spritz on the wall of the mizbeach. V'loy al kira kevesh, v'loy al kira heichel, v'loy al kira ulam. It wasn't spritzed on any of the ramp or on the heichel or the ulam. Ve'ezeh kir tachter. That's the bottom of the wall, meaning underneath the chut hasikra on the mizbech. How do you know it's the bottom? Maybe it's on the top. The dinu. And why would I say that? It would make a kal v'chaymer. Uma behema she'elasa lamata. Chatas l'mayla, for behema, the chatas is l'mayla, oif she'elasa l'mayla. Like we've said, the oila of a oif is l'mayla, and it didn't shechatas l'mayla. Certain the chatas oif should be l'mayla. Tamaloi mavanisha midam yimatzal yisoid hamizbeach. That the leftover dam should you yimatzal yisoid hamizbeach. So again, this word yimatza is like it means both squeezing and draining. So now we're saying yimatzal yisoid hamizbeach kir shashirayin shaloi mistamtzin liyisoid. It means the wall, it should be spritzed on the wall that the what's left over drains onto the yisoid. That's the bottom part of the mizbech. The top part doesn't drip there. According to the mandam, there's a saiviv, or there's all kinds of things that will stop the dam from getting to the bottom. So if you're saying that you need to have that should drip, let him spritz on top, and then go spritz again on bottom, and let that drip onto the yisoid. Amarava miksiv yamtze yimotze iksiv. Doesn't say that he should cause it to drip, but it drips on its own, meaning that there's no separate action taken to cause that to happen. The memela mashma, it happened on its own without taking a separate step. Amar Amar Rav, Ketzad Molken Chatas Oif. How you moiled the Chatas Oif? And to be honest with you, I did not even try really to understand the second shot. The first shot is Oichas Gapov B'Shtei Etzba Oisav. He holds on to the wings with his first two fingers, these two fingers. Ushtei Raglov B'Shtei Etzba Oisav, and he holds its feet with these two fingers. Umoisech Tzavara Al Roichev Godloi. He rests its neck on this, like the bird was lying on his palm, and he rests its neck on the inside of his thumb. Umalka, and then he sticks his thumb in the back to be meilik the neck of the bird. Masisa tzana, so that was the relatively easy one. Masisa tzana tzifrum malabar, that the bird was on the outside, somehow on the back of his hand. And he holds again, somehow with the bird on his back of his hand, he holds the wings and its legs between his two fingers each. And he puts the neck on the width of two of his fingers, and he does malika. This is a difficult avoid. This is the difficult avoid in the Mikdash. In fact, the Gemara Zuhi v'Sulay, is this the only difficult avoida? Va'ika kamitza, the chafina. But there's also the kamitza of the mincha and chafina that you do with the ketairis. It means it's one of the difficult avodas amongst the other difficult avodas in the Mishkan. Okay, we'll stop over here. If anyone has any, maybe Menachem, because of his medical training, can explain to all of us how